Uh, Good evening, YouTube. Um, so I haven't made a video really addressing the situation in Alberta, and I feel I should do so at this time. Um, let's start off with the most important thing which has happened, at least to my view. This interview with Premier Jason Kenney about the future of Alberta. And I'll get into it, and I may show you a clip or two, but firstly I just wanted to tell you what I thought. A caller came on today on the Danielle Smith show. I don't know how many of you know her, but this caller he touched me deeply when he talked about the suffering of people in Alberta, or at least from his perspective, the sufferings of which have happened in his own family and his neighbors and in his community. He said to Smith, "I don't know how much more we can take. We're at the end of our rope. There's nothing more that can be done. I know that Kenney is a good man and he's doing his best to talk things out, but talking can only go so far. What about the reality of us suffering here under this Trudeau government the last 4 years? We're out of work. We don't have anything left. The suicide rate is up in Alberta. And he went on and on like this. It was amazing. It was amazing to me that it's almost as though I'm ignorant, because in a way I should have known. The loss of one's job, their way of life, their current financial status is very, very... Oh, and there was another thing. Depression and so on and mental illness has been increasing. But that aside, it's very, very... It's a tragedy. A real great problem. It's impossible to understate a problem that big for families in this province. And I look at Kenney talking about national unity and keeping Confederation intact. And a lot of his answers are political, but between the lines, he's not serious about separatism. I don't think that for a second. I think Kenney's experience in the federal government has made him loyal to Canada and not loyal to Alberta in a way. He's a good premier, but my eyes have been open to start looking at some of these families that have been suffering under Trudeau after the loss of the pipelines, the alienation of Alberta, the shutdown of the oil sands, so to speak. You can argue they're not completely shut down. It doesn't matter. I'm tired of hearing about the counter arguments against the oil sands. I'm tired of hearing it. I don't respect anybody who's trying to say something like that. The fact of the matter is, people are actually suffering and dying for this province and for the policies that Trudeau himself laid out. Because their jobs are everything. Their jobs are everything. If they don't have work, then they cannot afford to protect their families. They can't even afford to heat their homes or be on to be so badly depressed that they commit suicide. Imagine that. Imagine. You lose everything. I can see it. My eyes have been opened by that one caller that pointed, and then I saw this speech later on today, and Kenney is even aware of it. The statistics of Albertans actually committing suicide and whatnot from no work and depression, because they're correlated. Obviously, if you lose your job, you're unemployed, you can't find work, you get depressed, you cannot feed your family, you cannot look after your financial affairs, you become more and more and more inclined to take your own life. I get it. This is not something talking for the sake of talking. That's what the caller said. There's only so much talking that can be done. What about those of us that are at the end of what we can give? What will we do? I'm so tired of this federal government being so inhuman that he deliberately ignores the suffering of the people he's supposed to govern. Not Kenny, Trudeau. Kenny is aware of it, so this is how I would correct it. Many of you may disagree with me, but the idea of our province collecting its own taxes and eliminating equalization. In this speech, Kenny's talking about having a referendum on equalization in 2 years. Come on. Come on. How long is it going to take you to act? How long before you realize Trudeau didn't have any interest in Alberta and actually hates us, according to his own testimony? Look at this. Kenny will say it right here.
Needs some good faith from Ottawa. And if it doesn't get that, I fear that the alienation is going to go in a very problematic direction. But Rick, this is also why we have built into our platform commitments some real leverage points, including forcing a serious debate on the Constitution that I don't think Justin Trudeau wants to have, which is a full open referendum on equalization 2 years from now, if we can't get fairness, if we don't get a pipeline built.
So what are we going to do in the time in that time 2 years from now? I'm as soon as it starts involving people's lives, as soon as his policies start to harm our own people, this is the point that the left takes it too far, a anti-human approach. That's the point. The left is so busy, the liberals are so busy trying to protect their own selfish interests. Now people are actually dying. Whether you'll admit it or not is irrelevant. It's the truth. That's what's happening. It's amazing how important someone's job is. It really, you can talk a lot of talk in politics and in the media and whatnot, but when it comes right down to it, when somebody is broke and really broke and experiencing that level of, say, poverty in a first-class nation, in one that's completely modernized, come on. Why are we still discussing the problem? Why is there no action? There must be something to be done now, at this moment. Because, it's easy, I can say, snap my fingers, come up with a solution. They've been talking about this since Trudeau already introduced the legislation. What was it? For the anti-build pipelines law. So this has already been in discussion. And the fact that you're going to delay more discussion, no. Premier Kenny, I believe you act too late. 2 years is a long time to reach something that you promised during your election that you were running on and you were going to eliminate immediately. Right? Alberta can't take any more of this. This is done. This is already over. Trudeau has done everything in his power to damage the oil sector in this country. And he'll do more. when the carbon tax is implemented. And I doubt that now that he has nearly a majority in government, how easy it would be for him to delay and delay on Trans Mountain for indefinitely. Like, are you really that naive that you think he's actually going to do something about the pipeline? They bought it so that they could control it. Like, it's not any more privatized, and like he's going to delay and delay it until it's either an election leverage or he feels that it's already forgotten. Here's how I feel. This is the point that I really wanted to get across. Eastern Canada, according to the testimony of a gentleman that I heard on the Rob Breckenridge show, he said it very clearly. And this may be divisive, but I'll say it anyways. He's a Frenchman, a businessman, that has headquarters here in Calgary. But he's from Montreal. And he said the East will only ever vote in a French Prime Minister. Or rather an Eastern Prime Minister, if you will. And the more that I look at the history of it, the more I agree. The East will never be satisfied longer than one term with a Western Prime Minister with Western ideals. Right? This is the problem with Canada, is that we're so different. We want to stay together, I think. Maybe there's a lot of us of goodwill, but there are equally a lot of us of ill will towards each other. And I don't like that kind of division, but nevertheless, it's naive to say that it doesn't exist. Trudeau has made this province suffer terribly. There can be no doubt of it. And we're not the only province that suffered under him. As far as the election goes, I'm very disappointed in the results. Mostly I blame Scheer for incompetence in the face of the election, properly selling the message, properly selling the Conservative Party, and himself. But, in spite of all that, after all the scandals and all the nonsense, I mean, I feel very strongly that separation in this province might be a more and more and more promising solution. And I'm not embarrassed to say it, because who are we to decide for somebody else what the facts are? This is the tragedy of Alberta. We have paid and paid and paid and paid to the rest of Canada and received nothing in return except contempt from political leaders, from the Liberal Party, from the Green Party, from the NDP Party, from the Bloc Québécois. The only one that didn't is the PPC and Maxime Bernier, and they don't have any longer a voice in government. That's an elected member. So where is our pity? Where is our heart for these people? Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your time. Bye-bye.